not oriented to the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west.
To test his theory, Dr. Carlotta was curious to find out if other ancient structures shared Teotihuacan's same geographic anomaly.
What I ended up doing was developing an algorithm as the basis for analyzing their alignment. So now, as we'll see, when we zoom out, we'll find that Teotihuacan is aligned to other sites nearby. And I'll show you that by zooming out here. And this shows a number of other sites in the Valley of Mexico that are aligned in the same general direction. All of these lines are meridians that lead to a point east of Hudson Bay.
Incredibly, these sites align with a location that Hapgood proposed was once the North Pole.
Hapgood believed the Hudson Bay Pole existed 12 to 18,000 years ago. So these sites, by virtue of their alignment to this particular pole, could be that old.
If Dr. Carlotta's analysis is correct, it would date the construction of Teotihuacan to at least 10,000 BC, which is 10,000 years older than mainstream archaeologists propose. And he contends that other ancient sites were built even earlier.
One of the most enigmatic sites on Earth is Baalbek, the Temple of Jupiter in Lebanon. As you can see, this site is oriented to a point in northern Greenland that Hapgood believed was a former location of the North Pole.
Based on Hapgood's theory, Baalbek's alignment to northern Greenland would date it to a staggering 50,000 years ago.
Another site nearby, the western wall in the city of Jerusalem, is aligned in the direction of the Greenland Pole. And let's take a look at a third site, the Parthenon in Athens. We believe that the original structures at these sites, in other words, the original sites themselves were established as long ago as 50,000 years.
According to Dr. Carlotta, these are still not the oldest structures that exist on Earth. Based on Hapgood's theory, the North Pole was located in the Bering Sea more than 100,000 years ago.
So this is the temple of the six monoliths at Ollantaytambo, and it's the Sun Temple. Normally, sun temples are aligned to the cardinal directions. They have an eastern side that faces the rising sun on the equinox. Here, the Sun Temple is tilted approximately 45 degrees. An alignment to the current pole doesn't make any sense. But if we now change our reference and look at an earlier pole, this pole thought to have existed in the Bering Sea, then the orientation of the Sun Temple makes perfect sense. So what's significant about this analysis is that it actually extends the time frame for archaeology from 10,000 years to tens of thousands of years to perhaps 100,000 years or more. So it's my contention that the 5 ages of the Aztecs, the 5 ages of the Greeks, and the previous and current locations of the pole are all correlated. They all tell the same story.
The idea that cataclysmic pole shifts actually occurred is startling. These structures can be much older than archaeologists admit. And ultimately, hundreds, thousands of years later, people found them again and started reusing them. It's a fascinating thought. Are the remnants of long-lost civilizations still standing today? Civilizations that existed on Earth as much as 100,000 years ago, but misinterpreted by scholars as being much more recent. Perhaps the proof can be found by examining physical evidence of ancient writing, dating back more than 10,000 years. Boston, Massachusetts, February 1st, 2019. Geologist Dr. Robert Chung and his colleague, Dr. Manu Safzadeh, announced a discovery that has the potential to radically alter the currently accepted timeline of human history. They believe they have found hieroglyphic writing at the 12,000-year-old archaeological site of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. If true, it would predate the earliest known writing by thousands of years.
I'm convinced now that we have evidence of actual, what we can only call writing, symbolic notation, writing on some of the pillars. We're still trying to interpret them, but if this analysis is correct, they had writing. And according to standard conventional thinking, up until now, writing and literacy did not exist anywhere on Earth until 6,000 or 7,000 years after Göbekli Tepe. And what we see at Göbekli Tepe, I don't believe that's the beginning.
Could the strange symbols found on the stone pillars at Göbekli Tepe represent a writing system that was developed by a long-lost civilization, one that thrived more than 12,000 years ago? As far as ancient astronaut theorists are concerned, physical evidence of lost civilizations has been found that they believe to be much, much older. Pinar del Rio, Cuba, 2001. Canadian explorer Paulina Zalitsky and her team are conducting an oceanic survey off the coast when they detect curious formations more than 2,000 feet underwater.
They found, when they were taking images, some kind of pyramidical structure and other structures. There were circular areas, there was what appeared to be some kind of city built down there. It was about 2 square kilometers in size. So this is something quite astonishing if this is, a reality.
This pyramid city is so deep in the ocean that geologists and archaeologists are saying that it must be 50,000 years old for sea levels to be that low.
50,000 years old? Might the formations found on the coast of Cuba corroborate the findings of Dr. Mark Carlano, who suggests that the alignments of Baalbek, the Greek Parthenon, and numerous other ancient structures date back some 50,000 years?
We've got ruins all over the world that are underwater. Ruins have been found underwater in Lake Titicaca. The formation of Yonaguni off the southern Japanese island of Yonaguni. We have underwater cities around India, such as Dwarka, which is the famous home of Krishna. And Indian archaeologists for years thought it was just a mythical city until they started finding these underwater ruins off of Gujarat. There's over 200 known sunken cities in the Mediterranean. So much of the evidence for early civilizations on planet Earth would be underwater today. So they were obviously built at a time when the ocean levels and the seas and the continents were quite different than they are today.
All of this evidence tells us that there were extraordinary civilizations and cultures that have been lost to the story of the world until now.
Although many of the world's known underwater ruins still await excavation due to the difficulty of reaching them and retrieving artifacts, it is hoped that divers will someday be able to examine these structures and find symbols carved into them that match those found at Göbekli Tepe. But as far as Dr. Robert Schock is concerned, the wait may already be over. In 1991, he ignited a firestorm of controversy when he suggested the Great Sphinx of Giza was built long before the age of the pharaohs.
At that time, all the Egyptologists agreed that the Sphinx had been carved in 2500 BC, that was carved from scratch from the limestone bedrock. I'm a geologist. I went there, I looked at the Sphinx. Within the first couple of minutes, I knew there was something amiss. What we did is we looked at subsurface weathering, mineralogical changes to figure out when the rock was carved. I came to the conclusion that the Sphinx goes back not just a few thousand years, but to the end of the last ice age, so to about 10,000 BC or so.
Key to Dr. Schock's analysis was the type of erosion he observed in the base of the Sphinx.
You look at the body of the Sphinx itself, I, as a geologist, noticed immediately that the core body is eroded, not by wind and sand, as you expect. precipitation.
Water erosion in the Sahara Desert? If this analysis is correct, what could have caused it?
There's a huge increase in global temperatures at 9700 BC. This correlates with the melting of the glaciers, rising of sea levels. But when you have all this water being put into the atmosphere can only hold so much water. It comes down as precipitation, it comes down as torrential rains.
But if, as ancient astronaut theorists believe, the great Egyptian megalithic structures were built more than 10,000 years ago, what happened to the advanced civilization that created them? Perhaps the answer is closer than we think, and can be found embedded in the pages of the Holy Bible. London, England, 2014. Dr. Irving Finkel, one of the world's foremost experts on cuneiform writing and a curator at the British Museum, publishes a book titled The Ark Before Noah. In it, Finkel translates a Sumerian tablet that dates back 3,700 years and rewrites the biblical story of Noah and the Great Flood. The book sparks a global sensation.
When this tablet came across the desk to me and I realised clearly how important it was one of those heart-stopping moments. Everybody in the world is interested in Noah's flood and where it might have come from, so it's a really big thing in the Bible. God decided, because human race was so sinful and wicked, to destroy everything, and at the last minute relented enough to inform Noah that he has to build a boat really fast and put all the animals in it and shut the doors, and afterwards life could continue when the waters went down. But the tablet is at least 1,000 years older than the story in the Bible. So, of course, this means that the question of where the story came from has a whole